Okay, right, let's make a start. Right. So, welcome to the 8 weeks Hashimoto's and Hypothyroid weight loss program. I'm really pleased that you've signed up, and I'm looking forward to working with you over the next few weeks and helping you get some of that weight moving that you've been struggling with, and helping you to understand what is causing basically the issues at the moment that you're facing. So this week is just a welcome and orientation. I'm just going to be basically going through how the Facebook group works, how the accountability buddy works, and some kind of information about the food diary and kind of weights and measurements, things like that. And then obviously at the end, if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer anything that crops up. So I'll just give a little brief introduction before we start. I'm Helen. If you've been in the Facebook group, I'm sure you're kind of familiar with me by now. I do have Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's in 2012, so that's 12 years ago now. Prior to that, I was diagnosed with celiac disease in 2004, and at that point I had abnormal TSH levels. Had I known what I know now to check my antibodies, I probably would have saved myself a lot of problems. I had the big gap, the 8 years between those two diagnoses, where I really struggled with my health, and my thyroid wasn't retested again at all during that period. It was only when it was suspected I had Lyme's disease that somebody decided to test my thyroid as well. So obviously if I'd have tested the antibodies then, I would have known I had Hashimoto's. I could have maybe done something a little bit sooner and not ended up in the mess I ended up in. 2 years after the Hashimoto's diagnosis, I was diagnosed with pernicious anemia, which is an autoimmune B12 deficiency. And those three tend to go quite closely together, the Hashimoto's, the celiac, and the pernicious anemia. Quite a lot of people tend to have all three of those. Then in 2016, so 2 years after the pernicious anemia diagnosis, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And at this point, from the Hashimoto's diagnosis through to that fibromyalgia diagnosis, my quality of life was pretty poor. I had no social life. I wasn't able to do any of the sports or activities I'd been previously doing. I was really struggling to function on a daily basis. Even the most simple tasks sometimes were leaving me absolutely floored. Things like showering and washing my hair would absolutely floor me, and I would need to rest after doing kind of even something that we'd take for granted. So I did end up in a real mess, and it was at this point in 2016 that I started seeing a nutritional therapist, and I started to turn my health around and started to see a lot of improvements. And one of those improvements was the weight loss. So I switched to an anti-inflammatory diet and cut out the things that were causing me issues. And within 2 months, I'd dropped from probably size 14 down to a size 8. So the weight loss in that aspect was quite dramatic, just from changing that diet over in that kind of short space of time. So that time frame is pretty much the time frame that we're looking at for this weight loss program. I'm not saying you will see those same dramatic effects. It depends what's going on for each individual person. For me, obviously, that the diet, I thought my diet was pretty good. Obviously, it was not. But yeah, switching made a big impact. It didn't fix things. My nutritional therapist retired, and at that point, I decided that I was going to start looking into nutrition myself. I started reading and researching, and it was probably 2019 that I decided to study nutrition myself. So I have a level 6 diploma in nutritional sciences and therapeutics. That's the nutritional therapy side of things. I also have a BTEC advanced level 3 diploma in nutrition and health coaching. So that was 4 years of studying that kind of got me to that point. I also have a HND in biomedical sciences, so I've always been very science orientated. I love kind of reading the latest research and finding out kind of what's going on and why things aren't moving or things aren't changing as they're supposed to be, and kind of keeping up with that latest developments in what's going on in the research world. So I bring kind of all of that to what I do, my own personal experience, my qualifications, and also my work previously when I worked with my partner as a private chef, which has helped with kind of writing the recipe ebook. And making sure everything's balanced and also tasty. So kind of nobody's going to stick to anything if everything tastes bland. So that's a big part of the recipe book, is making sure that the recipes kind of taste great. Okay, so enough about me. We're going to look at the food diary template. We're going to look at accountability buddies, and they're going to work a little bit differently this year. We're going to look at weighing and measurements and how that works, and then look at goals and motivations and answering any questions if you've got any at the end. Hopefully, it's only probably going to take another 10 to 15 minutes. I don't want to keep you on for a long time for this first one. It's just kind of to introduce everything. Okay, so this is roughly like a template of what I'm going to be asking you to complete. And I want you to kind of start this immediately as soon as we finish this live. So about 9 p.m. my time here in France, you're going to receive an email with a template on to fill out this food, mood and symptom diary. What I want you to do is give me as much information as you possibly can. And we'll go on to that in the next slide in a minute. But I want you to kind of put the times in that you eat. I want you to kind of detail what you're eating. And what you're drinking. So kind of breakfast, put in kind of 8 a.m. breakfast, what you had, plus what drinks you had, and the same for lunch, dinner. If any of them were takeout, make a note of that, or kind of ready meals rather than kind of homemade. Again, with snacks, if you snack between or kind of after meals, kind of make sure you're including that in there. And then any extra drinks away from your meals, make sure they're in there as well. And if you can track your symptoms and mood throughout that kind of 7-day period, it's going to make a big difference when we do the food diary analysis session. The more information I've got, the more I'm going to be able to help you of where things may be going wrong for you. So, for example, if you're experiencing kind of a crash mid-afternoon, 2 to 3 p.m. every afternoon, then make sure you put in that energy crash in there, or you're feeling shaky or dizzy, or if you kind of all of a sudden you notice your sinuses are really bad or you've got really bad joint pain, make sure you're putting that in there, because I'll be able to pick out the patterns of what might be causing that if I've got that information in there. So, like I said, record all the foods and drinks, as well as your symptoms and your mood, and the times that kind of all of this occurred and when you consumed the food. Make sure you've got as much detail in there as possible without going crazy. Obviously, you don't need to write pages and pages, but kind of just bullet point kind of any extra information that you think might be useful. Like I said, if it were ready meals, takeout, how long symptoms lasted, things like that. And if there's anything that you noticed that made it worse or better. So hopefully that's not going to be too bad. It's only for 7 days. So I want you to do that before we move on to the first live teaching next week, because I want to get an accurate portrayal of what you're eating now, what's causing those problems. So don't be afraid of being completely honest. No, I'm not going to be judging what you eat and thinking, oh my God, what the hell is she eating? That's not what this is about. It's about looking at what might be tripping you up so that I can kind of unpick those patterns and start to introduce better eating habits, maybe remove foods that might be causing issues and symptoms due to sensitivities, basically getting any inflammatory foods out of there. So the more honest and kind of accurate you can be and the more detail you can give me, then the better it's going to help you with the whole process, but with that food diary analysis session particularly. So last year, the group was a little bit bigger. This year, it's really quite small, which is really nice because you're going to get a lot more of my attention. So you're going to be able to ask more questions, get more feedback from me, because there's only a few of you in the group, which is great for you. So rather than pairing you up this time, I'm going to ask you as a 3 to kind of connect and support each other, because obviously with an odd number, it's very difficult to pair people up. And because there's only 3 of you on the programme, it works well for you to kind of support each other. So how this works is that you can contact each other via Messenger if you're struggling, or if you've got questions, maybe you don't want to put them in the group, it's a bit more personal, or kind of you just need a little bit of a kind of kick up the backside and you want somebody to hold you to what you're supposed to be doing. This is the idea of it. If you are struggling, quite often somebody else within your kind of circle will be going through a good patch and will be able to kind of lift you up. So the more people you have holding you accountable, the more likely you are to be successful. Research has shown this, which is why I've done it. It worked really well last year. So I want to kind of keep that on this year and see how we can support each other. Obviously, you've got the Facebook group as well. You've got me there to answer any questions, but you've also got each other if you want to message each other as well. You will get a copy of these slides in the email afterwards. So once everything's downloaded, all the kind of replays downloaded, you'll get a copy of all this. So if you want to go back through any of the slides or anything, then it's all there for you to do so. So the weigh-in and measurements, each week we're going to be looking at your weight, we're going to be looking at your measurements for your hips and your waist. I'll also be asking you for your height at the beginning as well, because I find that the scales are not the best way of measuring kind of weight loss. Your body composition can start to change quite a lot, and when you're making those changes with your diet, and you can start to put more muscle on, and that can actually in some cases make the scale go up instead of going down, and it can be disheartening and make people stop kind of doing what they're doing, stop sticking to the changes. I find it far more beneficial to look at the measurements. These tend to shift for most people before the weight will shift. So you'll notice maybe your clothes will start to fit better. You'll notice the change in the measurements with a tape measure. I will also be tracking kind of BMI. I'll be tracking your waist to hip ratio and your waist to height ratio. And the reason for this is because there's not one kind of that is I would say this is the gold standard of kind of how to measure weight. Every single one of them has their downfall. So we tend to do all of them to kind of cover the bases and see what's going on. The BMI is great, but it's not always great for every single person. It's great as a whole general thing. But not always individually. I find for women in particular, the waist to height ratio is the best one to look at. And the reason for this is because we have our waists tend to naturally go in, unlike men. So when you're looking at the waist to hip ratio, it can look larger than it actually is because of our natural shape. So the waist to height gives a much more accurate picture of whether you're at a healthy kind of point or not. So I'm not going to ask for weights and measurements this week because we're not going to be making any changes. But what I am going to do is next week, you'll need to come with your weight, and you'll need to come with your knowing your height and knowing your measurements for your hips and your waist as well. And we'll be tracking that every week, so we'll be able to see the changes as they happen. Okay, so homework, what I want you to do this week. So in the Facebook group, I want you to basically do the kind of following tasks over the coming week. So today, if you can get in there and post an introduction to yourself, then that is great. The more kind of comfortable we feel with each other, the more likely we are to use the group and to post in there. So introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, kind of a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your journey with Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism. You don't have to give anything too personal if you don't want to, just kind of a little blurb. And then tomorrow, I want you to name your goal weight. So we're going to have these for accountability reasons to basically keep you on track and keep you going so that you know what you're aiming for. And whether that's your goal weight over the 8 weeks or whether that's a goal weight kind of long term that you're wanting to aim for, it doesn't matter, whichever works for you. Just there's a post, it'll be coming out at midday. You just need to pop kind of what your goal weight is in the comments. On Wednesday, I want you to dig out a picture of yourself of when you felt comfortable and happy with your weight. So when was that last time? You must have a picture that you can kind of think of in the back of your mind, or an event that you went to where you felt comfortable in your own skin and kind of were happy with where you were. Dig that picture out and kind of post that again on the task post. Put it as your screensaver, have it in your kitchen, wherever you want to keep you motivated of what you're aiming for. So on Thursday, we'll be looking at naming your motivation for losing weight. What is driving you to lose that weight? Is it health reasons? Are you wanting to bring your cholesterol down? Are you wanting to improve kind of pre-diabetes, kind of your blood markers, things like your liver function markers? Is it you wanting more energy? You want to be able to do more things? Whatever those basically motivations are, kind of make sure you put those in the comments. And then on Friday, explain how achieving your goals, your weight loss goals, is going to help you improve your life. So what impact is it going to have on your day-to-day life? And that can be emotionally, it can be physically, kind of with your work, with your family, whatever it is. What is it going to basically improve for you? And again, the reason we do this is because knowing what your motivations are, again, research has shown that you are more likely to stick to changes and more likely to kind of make those changes if you've got something that you're aiming for. So this is the whole reason behind this week, kind of getting everything prepared, ready for when we're going to make the changes. Like I said, make sure you connect on Facebook with your accountability buddies in your messages, just kind of get to know each other a little bit. And then in the Facebook group, feel free to post if you've got any questions, if you want to ask anything. I will be encouraging over the coming weeks for you to kind of share pictures of your meals, and there will be some of your tasks. But this week, again, if you've got any questions, you're not sure of anything, just pop it in the group. I will also create a chat, so if you prefer chat, that you can put it in there. And again, make the most of kind of that accountability side of it from me, from the group, from each other. It really does help you get those results. I've found that the people who've done this before and have been the most involved and the most supportive with each other have got the best results, because they've stuck with the changes and not kind of got disheartened with it. So just a heads up that next week, the first live teaching session will be about an hour long, and then there'll be Q&A session afterwards. If you have any questions from anything that I've kind of gone through in there, you'll be able to ask those questions live during the session. I will be asking you to change your diet next week. So I will be removing certain foods, asking you to include different foods. So depending on what day you shop, you might want to kind of adjust that slightly. I know I had a few people last year that said, oh, they usually shopped on the weekend, and then I changed the kind of diet at the beginning of the week, and they'd already shopped for the week. So just bear in mind that on Monday, I'm going to be asking you to start changing your diet. And if you want to have that full week of benefits of changing that, you might want to tweak your shopping a little bit so that it takes that into account if that's possible. The Hashimoto's Healthy Eating Recipe ebook. Last year I didn't hand this out until the live kind of teaching session, next week's teaching session, because I wanted to get an accurate portrayal of what you're eating now without anybody kind of digging into the recipes and changing like their eating habits. So I'm happy to give that out at the end of the week if you think that might help with creating your shopping list. And then I can explain why certain things have been removed and certain foods have been kind of increased or included. If you want me to do that, then just let me know. That's not a problem. But please, whilst you're keeping your food diary, don't start changing what you're eating. Otherwise, I won't get that accurate picture and kind of won't be able to spot where kind of maybe you're going wrong. Okay, any questions, Emma? It's all on you.
Yeah, that was my question was, so I probably started trying to eat healthy and really become aware of Hashimoto's because I just didn't link it with diet ever before.
Yeah.
Until just maybe 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And have started making like fairly significant changes to my diet since then.
Okay.
Not in terms of like, well, definitely like I would have had crisps all the time. They're gone. I don't buy them anymore. I've changed a lot of products. I eat a lot more protein. I'm trying to like reduce gluten significantly. I've stopped eating bread, but this is only in 3 weeks.
Okay.
So if I give you a food diary, do you want the food diary that I was eating for the last number of years?
Okay.
Or that I'm eating and
give me what you're eating now at the moment. So
yeah.
what you've been doing for the last 3 weeks, and we can always discuss kind of some of what you were eating before on the one-to-one call that we do when we do the food diary analysis.
I mean, I know my diet was not really healthy prior to
the changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought my diet was fairly healthy until I worked with a nutritional therapist and I was quite shocked. So,
yeah. Like I wouldn't say like my diet was the worst.
yeah.
But I definitely had like a packet of crisps every day.
Yeah.
You know, like
yeah, things that you think are kind of yeah, there was definitely things that I thought it was quite fresh and healthy, and a lot of it was, but there were a lot of things that were tripping me up that I hadn't even clocked that were a problem.
yeah. Like I probably cooked my own food most evenings, but
Yeah.
there may not have always been veg in it and things like that.
Yeah.
Or proportions were all wrong, and then I would have had whatever if um treats like I didn't really.
Yeah.
I was never trying to monitor or diet or anything.
Yeah. And things like that, what you'll find as we go through, treats aren't off the table. It's just a case of balancing things and making sure that we're not causing havoc when we're having those treats. So it's like what we eat, and some of it we did in the blood sugar balancing challenge a couple of weeks ago. So the first unit that we'll be doing next week, some of that came from some of the blood sugar balancing challenge came from that unit. So we'll be going over that again, and there'll be extra information in there as well that we'll be talking about. So how to balance your food.
And how long after you eat something would you experience like symptoms?
Okay, that's a good question. And again, we'll be going through this when we get to kind of the gut health section. But symptoms can be for some people, and depending on the severity, the sensitivity of the food, or kind of the level of inflammation that's going on in the gut, they can be quite quick. But for others, it could be hours, and it can be up to days afterwards as well. So it depends how reactive your system is to that particular food, which is why I include the food diary analysis session, because it's really hard to pick those patterns out yourself when you're maybe not trained with the nutritional side of things and don't know kind of what patterns to look for.
And then just for the symptoms, so you said sinuses, that's not something I would have thought would be a symptom.
Yeah.
Migraine,
Yeah,
headache,
anything like that, yeah. Joint pain, if you suddenly really feel that all of a sudden your joints feel really painful, again, that can be an inflammation issue.
like I would always have had this thing where like if I eat a big meal, my stomach like really swells, like I would look like I was 6 months pregnant.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll look at all that kind of stuff of why that might be as we go through. We'll be looking at gut health and sorry.
Bloating? Is that bloating?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a whole unit on gut health. So we'll be looking next week, we'll be looking at diet and starting to make the changes in diet. Then we'll be looking at medication, nutrient deficiencies and testing. And then I think the following week is gut health. So we'll be like a whole week on basically gut health and why you might be having some of the symptoms and what you can do about it.
Yeah. And then just when you said about the anemia,
Yeah,
you said something anemia,
pernicious anemia.
pernicious.
It means deadly.
Does the pernicious means just severe?
No, it means pernicious means deadly.
Oh, so what does that mean?
It means that if it's not treated and left unchecked, that basically it would end up killing you.
Oh,
So it's
would you?
simple. It's a simple thing to treat if you have got it. And again, during the testing unit, I'll be talking about that. I'll be talking about the different nutrients that need to be tested for and what symptoms might be indicate that I'd need testing.
And if you had anemia, would they know? Would they be saying to you, "This is pernicious anemia," or would I have to be like, would I know that I have that already if I have anemia?
No. There's various different causes of anemia. You can be anemic from like iron deficiency, from B12 deficiency, folate deficiency. So yeah, there can be different causes, and some of your blood count will indicate which one that might be. But without actually testing your B12 levels, you wouldn't know if it was due to B12. And it's the same as with the Hashimoto's. When it comes to the autoimmune B12 deficiency, they have to test specific antibodies in order to get that diagnosis. So it's not something that your GP would usually pursue unless kind of they'd tested your B12 and were really up on that side of things.
Okay. But you'll be going through that.
Yeah, I'll be going through all that, don't worry. So, yeah, answering any questions that you've got. It's quite a big unit, the testing unit. So I'll be going through like the thyroid testing and what tests you need, why you need them, what levels they should be at. And then I'll be looking at specific nutrient deficiencies that are quite often associated with Hashimoto's that are really quite common. And again, what tests you need for those, when to know when you need the testing, and where to get that testing. So
Yeah. And do you know, or have you ever heard, I just got diagnosed with another autoimmune
okay.
called IgA nephrology.
IgA nephrology. Okay, I'm gonna make a note of that for So that'll help with when we're doing the call, so I can kind of take that into account when we're doing the one-to-one calls with the testing and things.
Yeah.
Okay. And when did you get that diagnosis?
Just recently, but it's definitely, they think I have had it for over 30 years.
Okay. Okay. It's not uncommon for taking a long time to be diagnosed with autoimmune stuff.
Yeah, I basically have been seeing kidney specialists since I was 6, but just no diagnosis for any. Yeah, until recently.
Okay then, yeah, I'll keep that in mind when I'm looking at things as well. But that's always good to know, especially if I'm going to recommend any supplements or anything like that. It's always good to know what's going on that side of things. If there's other things that, or other medications or other diagnoses that may affect what I recommend and things like that.
Yeah. So do food shop on Tuesday. Is that what you said?
Sorry, what was that?
Do the food shop on Tuesdays.
Yeah, I would recommend, if you can change your routine and do it then yeah, because we'll do the live Monday evening, and then yeah, if you can do it Tuesday, you can have that pretty much a full week before the next one of having changed your diet over. So
yeah. Okay.
Okay. Is that have you got anything else, or is that?
No, that's everything.
Okay. Well, I know Federica and Mariam were going to watch on replay. So luckily I've remembered to record it, and it is streaming into the group. So yeah, that's fine. And you'll get the food diary template in your emails. And as soon as I've downloaded the video and uploaded everything, I'll send you the link with all that information as well. So you've got the replay if you want it.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, and like I said, if there's any other questions as we're going kind of through as you're going through the week, just pop them in the group and I'll answer those for you.
Okay.
Okay, right, I'm going to stop sharing this. And there we are back. And then I'm going to stop the record. There we are.